The idea of shooting as a game mechanic in FRC can be traced back to the early 2000s. The 2006 game Aim High was a super significant milestone. And in Aim High, the robots were required to shoot like foam balls into goals located at different heights on one central goalpost. This introduced a new level of complexity, requiring teams to develop mechanisms for ball collection, aiming, and shooting, all with a good amount of like precision and power. Um, it was notable for its high scoring potential and also encouraging different shooting mechanisms, including flywheels, catapults, and even some pneumatic launchers. FRC games have shot many different game pieces over the years. Frisbees in 2013, foam balls in 2016, and the 2020-2021 Infinite Recharge game, wiffle balls in 2017, and even like fabric-covered milk crates in 2018, with giant tennis balls and foam rings thrown into the mix. The evolution of shooting mechanisms in FRC is a testament to the creativity, engineering prowess, and collaborative spirit of all of the teams involved.
This video on fun is brought to you by viewers like you and also in partnership with the following. AndyMark is your one-stop shop for all your robotics competition needs. Celebrating 20 years of quality robotics parts and superior service, AndyMark employees have over 200 years of first-team experience. From mechanical and electrical products to tools and hardware, head on over to andymark.com for high-quality and affordable solutions.
Hi, I'm your host, Rylee. I'm a 3481 alumni, and I'm the head coach.
Hi, I'm Tauseef. I'm a 5431 alumni and mentor.
Hi, I'm Jeff. I'm a 1296 alumni and current mentor for 2718.
All right, y'all. So shooting games have been a part of FRC for a very long time. Can you tell me a little bit about your favorite shooting game?
So, with some recency bias, 2020 Infinite Recharge, or I guess 2021 as well, was my favorite shooting game. Just love the concept of the logo, which was very easy, especially for every boss that year. Just drop all 5 power cells in. It really helped teams within every bot for that game. But then also the mid and high goal for that game, the high goal was just a really tough accuracy challenge, which I really loved to see. And it really brought out like how important vision was that game. And the climbing of course was cool. The power, the color wheel was cool, but the shooting overall is just great. And in my opinion, that's what brought up the big swerve debate of how important it was after seeing 148 at Plano that year. It was Plano was such a fun event to watch and compete in as well. I was also lucky enough to go to Texas Cup in 2021 for my final competition as a student, but it was just such a fun game to watch, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and then jumping back just a few years prior, my favorite game is actually going to be 2016 Stronghold. That game has always held a special place in my heart, but I also thought it was super cool. Just the defense is in the way, and you could either go for the low-hanging fruit of the low bar, which a lot of teams opted to do, or if you wanted to go for the ranking point and some bonus points and elims, you could get those defenses as well. But you had to package all that around your shooter with the incredibly limited robot sizes, and we saw some incredible shooters that year. 2481 just able to package everything together with their defense mechanisms. 254, of course, 330, who's going to come up again later. 2056. I mean, just name any big team, and they probably had an excellent shooter that year. Just with all the dynamics of the game, it's just one of my favorites.
I have to agree. 2016 was one of my favorite seasons of all time, and I think the shooting was, I mean, for those of us who are old enough to remember, and for those of you who aren't, they were fairly large, like foam, almost like kickballs, like we used to play with at recess. And they were hefty. They were pretty fun to play with, and so it was really it was a challenge to get it to actually go as far as it went. I really loved that game, and the defenses were just, you had to innovate, and it was really interesting to watch teams successfully do it or not successfully do it, and then recover. But I have to say that one of my favorite recent games is 2022. I think that with the central scoring, it made for a really cool kind of defensive path situation. The cyclical motion of the field was just, it was super interesting to me. And there was a lot of innovation, I think, with vision and turrets and adjustable hoods. And So I think it was a really big year for change, especially following COVID. It was a year where we all just needed something that we knew that we could make better, and I think 2022 was definitely the year for that.
I really do think as well with 2022, it was a good game for us to come back from a big COVID season. Just going back to a shooter, shooters are realistically one of the easiest just starters for teams, rookie teams, or teams that just haven't really had much of a success recently. Shooters just you flywheel and shoot. It's really not that hard for teams, and it was a great game to come back from.
Over the years, FRC teams have progressively refined and innovated their shooting mechanisms to adapt to the changing challenges of games. In the early 2000s, when shooting challenges were first introduced, teams often relied on pretty simple mechanisms. Those early systems included spring-loaded catapults and very simple flywheel shooters, many of which were inspired by baseball pitching machines. As shooting challenges became more central to FRC, teams began focusing on improving the precision and consistency of their mechanisms. Key developments during this period were dual flywheel systems and pneumatic launchers. During the 2012 game Rebound Run Bowl, which involved shooting basketballs, teams began integrating sensors to improve the accuracy of their shots. Optical sensors and gyros were used to fine-tune the angle of the shot and the speed of the flywheels, allowing for more reliable scoring. With the increased availability of sophisticated sensors, motors, and control systems, FRC teams began incorporating advanced technology into their shooting mechanisms. Notable innovations include vision processing, turreted and articulating shooters, and variable speed on shooters. By using camera and vision processing software, teams are able to track targets and automatically adjust their shooting mechanisms for optimal accuracy. This technology became more apparent in 2006 as the kit of parts included the CMU cam, and then became more important in the 2016 game Stronghold and the 2020-2021 game Infinite Recharge, where robots really needed to align with targets that varied in position. So shooters have evolved over the years, depending a lot on the game pieces. What is your perspective on how shooter designs have changed based on the game piece?
So I'm going to break a little bit away from the game piece itself and talk about game design just a little bit, starting with 2012. So you had this big bump in the middle of the field with the 3 bridges that could be scored on. You could also cooperate in the middle at the end of the match. So that was kind of where we first saw cooperation introduced as well. But teams were really limited to half the field, but they had to get their basketballs from the other half of the field. And you saw various teams either getting over the bump or crossing the bridges. But there were some teams that took advantage of this and were able to make half-court shots. But others still would want to use that protected zone or get a lot closer. And so 2012, even though we've seen different size balls as game pieces over and over, 2012, 2016, 2022, that was really the first year where we saw the design of the game really influence how teams were looking at how to score points. We saw that a little bit in the next year with 2013, with some teams going for full court shots with the Frisbees and some going for like half court or close shots. But we really wouldn't see how much that would influence the design again until 2020, especially with the trench run, looking at like 2481 versus 125 in particular. 2481 was able to use that protected zone, and they said, you know what? We don't care that there's an additional 3-point goal if we're super accurate. We can just drive back and forth on a third of the field and shoot from all the way back and score just as many points. Meanwhile, 125 decided to go the other route. They went full swerve and turret, and they said, we want to get those 3 points, but we need to be close. So let's be as precise as possible. And I think just going beyond shooter design and going into like game analysis and entire robot design is really where we see some of these shooter games shine.
And I kind of have to back off with what you said. Overall, designs haven't changed much, especially with just round balls. The main things you really see is just the shooters have gone faster based on compression, and of course the materials of the game piece. Turrets have gone faster, but overall it really does depend on the game piece, the compression you've done on the game piece, and the material of those game piece. For example, with this season, with 2024, the notes, their material is really poor, to be honest. They rip everywhere. You get orange dust everywhere. Like my team's robot's just full of robot dust, of just not robot dust, notes dust. And we haven't cleaned it after our off-season event at TRI. We looked at it today and we were like, this is very orange. It's not our typical blue and purple. So, but overall, designs really have not changed. It has improved, but changed not much. But we do see really unique moments, like in 2022 with Team 2881 Lady Cans. They had a dual catapult for Rapid React, which worked really well. And with a game like Rapid React, most teams did do the typical flywheel shooter. But this catapult design worked so well in first in Texas. They did so well at states. I was upset that they didn't make it to Worlds that year, but they did so well. And the catapult, it to this day, it still intrigues me how they're able to accurately put that in, because it doesn't look like there's much of an angle to make it go in the center, but it was so unique. Even after I was with Tyler filming the behind the bumpers, and I was still asking questions like, this is such a unique robot. Catapults, it works so well, and I love to see things unique like this. Because with shooters, you just see flywheels. Like even with the notes and the frisbees, you just see just flywheels. But seeing catapults like this, it was great.
Yeah, I mean, piggybacking off of what Tauseef was saying, especially with balls, but really with a lot of these shooting games, we are seeing a lot of innovation and even COTS parts. Turrets became a lot more accessible with the release of the Great Turret, which I think made it a lot more reasonable for other teams. But we've also seen a lot of innovation with like adjustable hoods. And some really, really cool like PID and other code things that are way above my pay grade that just make it that much better. I think vision shifting to April tags also made a really huge difference with shooting and accuracy and all of those things. I do love seeing very unique robots like 2881, but I also really, really love seeing very smooth, just beautiful little shooters that are all the same. You know how they work, you can make it work. But again, COTS parts have made this really helpful. Andy Mark's release of the ballasts for their stealth wheels was another really huge COTS thing that made it more accessible for teams, because now you can ballast inside of a wheel. You don't have to have a huge copper block. And so those innovations have just made us better and better and made it more and more competitive and accessible for teams. Whether that be with a frisbee for those of us who are old, or in 2024, where you get to spread Cheeto dust everywhere.
I'm just waiting for another unique game piece that we just can shoot around instead of always having to use balls. So,
look, last year we used cones. Okay, yeah. We're not looking for another unique game piece.
I'm still waiting for the football game. I'm just
we would love to be a quarterback. I think almost every Texas team is probably gonna name it Dak Prescott or something along those lines.
Dak Prescott.
I mean,
better copyright that now.
We'd like to thank AndyMark and AndyMark.com for their continued support of fun content. AndyMark.com is your one-stop shop for all your competition robotics needs. Featuring over 200 years of combined experience, AndyMark has now been in business for 20 years, servicing first teams and beyond. From electrical and mechanical, anything you may need, go to AndyMark.com to see how they can help your team and to get some of the best quality parts and the superior service that your team deserves.
FRC has seen numerous teams develop exceptional shooting robots that have become legendary within the FRC community. Teams like 118 Robonauts, 2056 OP Robotics, 254 Cheesy Poofs, and 1678 Citrus Circuits, along with numerous others, have continuously innovated and competed with excellent shooter designs. These teams and their robots are known for their innovative designs, precision, consistency, and ability to perform under pressure in high-stakes matches. And the teams represent the pinnacle of engineering, strategy, and the execution of FRC. Their shooting mechanisms were not only effective, but often set new standards for what was possible within the competition. Each of these robots has contributed to the legacy of excellence that defines the FIRST Robotics competition. All right, y'all, final question. What are some of your favorite shooting robots from over the years?
Right. 2017, 254. What do they have? Double shooters. I mean, they were just shooting all the wiffle balls on the field into the goal, and it was just nonstop. And then even in 2017, you also had 118 with a really accurate shooter and 5775 motors on their shooter in 2017. It was just insane. But then not only that, also in 2020, you had 148 with their swerve robot with just speeding across the field and just shooting nonstop. It was insane to watch, and they almost did everything except the color wheel. But then you have 118 come out of nowhere with the color wheel, and I can say here that I was the one that was able to watch the first time all three stages were enabled. But seeing 118 and 148 work together at Plano, it was a beautiful playoffs to watch, and they were just nonstop shooting. There was even moments 118 just had 6 power cells in their robot, and nobody noticed because you can't see inside their robot. But it was just great. Just both of them were just so much was going on that game.
You love that white and gold, huh?
Bit too much.
Yeah, and so kind of like speaking of three-digit teams that everyone knows, one team that always gets brought up to me personally, going back a little older, they're like, I don't know if you're old enough to remember, but there was this one qualification match in 254, but like 254, both their partners are dead. They score all the boulders in 2016, they get all the RP, and I'm like, no. Let me tell you about this other team, because I'm old enough to remember watching FRC back when I was this would have been middle school, which is terrifying to think there are students that would have been in their cradles during this time. But 1717 to Penguineers, legendary team. I'm still sad that they had to fold before I could become a student. This team could do it all. They were one of the early pioneers of Swerve. Before even 1323 started doing Swerve, 1717 was doing Swerve on their own. There was a match where, like in 2016 with 254, both of 1717's partners died. However, that did not matter because they scored every single basketball that ended up on their side into the high point goal. And without even balancing at the end, they outscored the other alliance. Incredible, especially for such an early game when we just didn't really see like so many of these fast top tier robots. And then 4 years later, speaking of 2016, there was an even more legendary team than 254. That being, of course, 330 the Beach Bots. And I'm noticing a pattern. My favorite teams tend to fold after a couple of years because, unfortunately, they have also left us since then. But 330 the Beach Bots, I mean, in essence, their design was not that complicated. It was a shooting arm that could climb. That was it. But that was their entire capability. One mechanism did it all. In fact, in this semifinal match on Einstein, they fell over not once, but twice. And they were able to use that arm to get back on all four wheels and park at the end of the match for that bonus point with that ranking point. And they were able to outscore, and we know how Einstein finals played out that year. They ultimately took home the world championship. Just, you want to look for a recent robot that just does it all, 330.
Yeah, I can remember very distinctly the roar in the arena when they got up the first time, much less the second time. It was like a collective gasp when they fell the second time, and then complete chaos when they came back up. I have to shamelessly plug for my team when it comes to my favorite robot. And it goes back to my favorite season, which is 2016. In 2016, Bronkbots had a beautiful robot. We named it Nightmare because it was every team's worst nightmare. It was a wonderful robot. It did it all. We were one of the few tall robots of that year. A lot of robots were little guys. We were not. It was a big robot. I loved that robot so much that in 2022 we duped it. Like literally used that cat as a reference for our 2022 robot. And I think that like it was one of those years where 2016 was just a year. It was just a year. And that robot was just a robot. But you know, it's FRC.
Anything's possible, especially with the game design committee. Who's ready for what's next?
Water game.
Water game.
Shooting games are a core part of FRC and certainly aren't going anywhere anytime soon. Thanks for joining us for this snapshot of the past. Now that we've covered the history of shooting games and mechanisms, leave any questions or suggestions for future episodes in the comments. Don't forget to follow us on social media and join us for the next episode of Rewind.
This video on fun is brought to you by viewers like you and also in partnership with the following. AndyMark is your one-stop shop for all your robotics competition needs. Celebrating 20 years of quality robotics parts and superior service, AndyMark employees have over 200 years of first-team experience. From mechanical and electrical products to tools and hardware, head on over to andymark.com for high-quality and affordable solutions.